Look, I promised you we would meet, and I'd tell you who my politician of the year was. And it was a pretty close run thing when I looked at it. But if and I do consider politics, the art of making a difference, advancing an agenda, and I think having a positive influence on a nation or on your constituency. I think David Seymour qualifies as that for the year 2024. He does not have the support of his coalition partners. He has a mainstream legacy media deeply against him, deeply partisan on the issue he has chosen to champion. And he has, I think, faced some of the worst vitriol and hate speech I've seen in New Zealand politics. But he did say, and I come from this point, the country needed to have a debate about some stuff. And whether he's going to end up winning or losing that debate, David Seymour has started a serious national discussion and discourse on the issue of our constitutional arrangements, the place of the Treaty of Waitangi in those arrangements, and what we are fundamentally as a democracy and a nation going forward. And I do think we needed that. And I think the vast majority of New Zealanders think we needed that. Difficult thing to get started. But damn it, he's a winner because he got the conversation started. So David Seymour joins us now to look back on the year. Congratulations, David. It doesn't mean a hill of beans that I say you're this program, my politician of the year. But I'm wondering how you feel when you look back and reflect on 2024. You didn't have quite the election you wanted last year, but you had an issue to advance, and you have.
Well, first of all, thanks, Sean. And you say it doesn't mean a hill of beans, but I'll take it. I'm grateful for the work that you do and giving people a different outlet from what you call the legacy media, which I agree often misses the mark as far as what most New Zealanders are actually thinking because they're too afraid to say it. So good on you. Look, I mean, you look at the last year, you're right, everyone wishes they got more votes in the election. I suspect that's true of every party. But we've knuckled down to represent the 250,000 or so people who gave their party vote to ACT. There's a few more at the moment saying in the polls that they'll do that, and we're grateful for those indications of support. I think if you break it down, basically the economy has been the number one issue, and I'd like to think that ACT's played a positive role. Advocating
Come on, that high
waste.
fee yesterday was pretty depressing reading, David. If you were looking for an agenda of change or expansion anywhere, that's put the kibosh on that, hasn't it?
Well, there's been too much expansion of government, and what you'll see now is that we're going to do a 2.4 billion a year operating allowance. And what that means is that we're going to be spending less and less each year after population growth and inflation. So that means real efficiency every year to get government back in shape. Now, I know there's people who say, well, you should go a lot faster. I'd generally be one of them. But what we've got is three parties working together to carry out an agenda of cutting government waste. And right across the board, I look at Brooke van Velden and health and safety and labour laws, or Nicole McKee and anti-money laundering, or Simon Court and Resource Management Act. I'm really proud of what ACT is doing. And that's before you come to what I'm doing with the Ministry for Regulations. So, cutting waste, cutting red tape, that's the only way you let people get out and actually produce more wealth, which is what we all desperately need right now. The government doesn't have a magic money tree, but we can create the conditions for people who already work very hard to be more productive and get more reward.
Okay. Look, this is funny because I hear that's where ACT, that's where it was born from. Roger Douglas, Prebble, about the economics, about the efficiency of a country or a government. But I would argue, and one of the reasons I have bestowed the title My Politician of the Year upon you is that ACT now seems to be very active and I think reflecting a certain public mood in regards to cultural changes in society, in regards to changing the temperature around issues that might be seen as, part of the culture wars, the war on woke. And I think New Zealand First and ACT, while National represents it itself as doing the heavy economic and policy lifting, you guys have been the kind of mood change or represent the mood change that people voted for when they gave the coalition the ability to form a government.
Yeah, see, I would argue we're punching above our weight on the economics too. But I take your point. The way that we conceive ourselves as a country is at a crossroads. We can either see ourselves as a group of people who each have equal dignity and equal rights to pursue our goals, be responsible for our actions, and basically just make the most of our time on earth. Or we can see ourselves as, the way I suspect some of those judges at the Northern Club see it, two collectives where your membership of a group matters more than your inherent dignity and rights as an individual. Now, I would say that actually if you go back to Roger Douglas when he started ACT, he would talk about things like, does a person have a right to get a job, to buy a car, whether it's made in New Zealand or elsewhere, to be able to get themselves around, to access an education. ACT's always been hot on education, and we're still doing that through charter schools, giving people choice and control over their lives. And so I actually tie all of this together, the treaty issue, the economy, the education, free speech. It's all about this idea that each of us is a thinking and valuing being. We should have the opportunity, the dignity to make our own way in the world, not be lumped by stereotypes or have your assets stolen by the IRD or any other criminal.
Yeah. Hey, David, I know I can sound. How's your voice? Have you got a little bit of a tickle? Or do you want a glass of water, or have you're on your last leg?
Oh, look, I'm running on Red.
Oh, Red Bull. God, the old
running
Nick,
on Red Bull.
Nick Smith juice.
We got one more day in Parliament until your property's safe, and
all right.
We're pretty keen just to.
Okay, look. Would you mind taking calls? And I know I didn't say I'm
happy to.
Okay, take some calls. Look, I want to talk about this Northern Club story. Were you aware what had gone down there before the story broke this morning?
No, I only read about it this morning.
Pretty amazing.
And I was actually browbeaten into joining the Northern Club 10 years ago when I became an MP, and I'm just astonished that that kind of thing can carry on there. But I think it speaks to, at least the way it's been reported, it speaks to a level of entitlement that I think Jacinda really empowered and enabled. That if you're on the side of good and right, as you see it, then you don't have to respect the dignity of other people. You don't have to follow basic manners and norms and customs. You can just, it's exactly the same as what we saw with the haka by Te Pāti Māori. And I think where we need to get to.
Well, Eunice Yagos, who wouldn't answer my simple question, the Attorney General, do you believe New Zealand needs to be decolonised, which she clearly does?
Well, I can't speak for her. That's up to the Attorney General to deal with whether she's doing a good job or not. But I respect Judith's space to do that. But yeah, I mean, I just think again a story from this year, and we were pretty keen to get involved in calling that out at the time. I mean, the idea that you should quote think carefully before prosecuting someone if they're Maori. I mean. It's just a total attack on that idea that each of us have inherent rights and dignity. And that's what ACT stands for. We stand against this kind of oppression.
And it's really interesting too, David. And I asked the Prime Minister that question. Well, what is it about the treaty principles you like? Nothing. There's nothing there I like. And once people looked at the three planks of it, it's very hard, I think, for a reasonable person to find anything there that they shouldn't like or support, right?
Yeah, and look, if you haven't been to treaty.nz, please do, and encourage others. If people say, they've got an opinion, this is divisive or racist or whatever else they're saying, say, look, do yourself a favour, go to treaty.nz, make up your mind based on what it says, because what's interesting about all the polling that's come out recently is that if you ask people, do you like the treaty principles bill, narrow majority say, oh, no, because they've just heard endless
that's because you're a racist,
media
David.
and
that's because you're a Nazi.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's just so tiresome. But once people say, well, look, should the government and Parliament have the right to govern and make laws? Yes. Should the Crown uphold the rights Maori had in 1840? Well, yes, but they should uphold all people's rights, actually. And should people's rights be equal? Yes, they should. I mean, those are the three principles. They reflect what Te Tiriti, the Maori version, actually said. And I think one day, if not through this law, we will see that as being the constitutional basis of our country, a true reflection of the treaty and the democratic liberal values our country is built on. And that's not a surprise, because the people who drafted the treaty were classical liberals in the mid-19th century, and they shared those values too.
All right. We've got a couple of callers with questions for you. Tom.
Good
Tom,
morning,
you're
Sean.
on.
David. David,
Hey, Tom.
I've got a question on a variation on the theme of the treaty, the law and the judiciary. I joined Gary Judd KC down at Parliament in October in support of his complaints to the Regulations Review Committee about compulsory tikanga in legal education. Now, since then, ACT has very encouragingly taken some steps to express their support. There was a press release on the day, which was very welcome, and that was followed up by a letter from Plunket to the committee, again expressing ACT support for Gary's complaint against compulsory tikanga in legal education. I know that ACT doesn't have any committee members in the Regulations Review Committee, but I wonder, one, whether ACT is aware of any updates on that issue, but then also, two, whether ACT has been speaking to the likes of Minister Goldsmith and others in the National Party about the complaint, so that there's that follow-through that we're looking for.
Well, first of all, I don't believe that the committee's actually delivered a verdict on it. I'm not sure why it's taken such a long time. As you say, I think it was back in October that Gary was before the committee. However, I can assure you that in my conversations, and if I see one of those members, I think Joe Mooney, I think the chair from Timaru, whose name I'm going to forget for a second, but he's a good guy. We've certainly been collaring them and saying, look, you guys actually have the power to do the right thing here, and you shouldn't feel that you're not able to. This is Parliament. You got elected to make the rules. What do you think in your heart is the right thing to do? I can only say that ultimately the decisions with those half a dozen on the committee, but they can't say that they weren't given every opportunity to come down the right way.